Hello. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. It's 7:30 p.m. It's our DREI Subcommittee meeting. On the agenda today, we have, before that, we have a quorum. Let me go ahead and take attendance. Jared Homer.
Here.
Cynthia Rivas-Mendes here. And Tony Rodriguez.
Here.
Perfect. Tony is joining us via Zoom. So our agenda today is glossary of terms, EDI starter kits, Good Educators Program. We have the Student Equity Council. There's going to be a parent engagement transfer. And then we have the EDI website, other business, and adjournment. And we have here we have Renee Haywood, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and she's with us to go through this agenda with us.
All right. Well, good evening. Thanks for having me. There's lots of things that I'd love to update you on, so we're going to kind of fly through some of it quickly, and then at the end, I'm going to actually head up to the back so that I can present to you a website that I've been working on. Just because of the logistics, I'll be moving at that point. So first off, coming up November 8th, just a few weeks away, we're going to have our Achieving Change Together conference hosted by the EDI office. We have 59 different workshops that our 2,700 employees will participate in. We have community folks who will welcome them in, and student ambassadors as well, who will be doing a panel at the end. And so I talked a little bit about that at another meeting, but just as a reminder, this is coming up in a few weeks. And for those who are on the school committee, if you're interested in coming, just reach out so that we can make a space for you. And that's the conference theme. And we're working on getting some lunch provided, so some of those things are still in the works, but I'll give that update as it comes. All right, so first up is the EDI glossary of terms. This is something that I gave to you, I think, maybe the last meeting, and it will be given out to schools in what you'll see later as the EDI starter kits. But just to give you a glimpse of what is in there, there's a few different definitions. Here's one: anti-racist leader believes racial groups are equals in all their differences and continually engages in self-reflective work that leads to educational policies, conditions, and cultures that resist and dismantle inequities due to individual and systemic racism to advance racial equality. So that's just an example of something that is in the glossary: allyship, belonging. There's also code switching, colonialization. So all these words are, we really have to learn the language now of EDI or DEI talk that's out there. And so this was a collaboration of research that I've done, but a lot of work that Darnell has pulled together from those who work with him, steering committee, the SPOS groups. Amina Pilgrim also added some language here. And so there's been lots of folks that have given their input so that we could get a complete list, but this language is always evolving, so there'll be an electronic version as well. So the EDI starter kits that I mentioned, we're just working through what we can afford at this point. We want to give out some resources, and there are books that we want to give out to adults, make them available, but more importantly, just some multicultural books so that kids can see themselves in literature in positive ways. And just some of those, they're not titles, but words that I put on those fake books. There are resources about ableism, about diversity, about health equity. So just to get people started in understanding what this language is, there's also pronoun pins, and there'll be a set of the EDI glossaries. The actual printed portion will be added into those kits. And the next thing that I want to get into is something that's really exciting, and I'm hoping that this will provide opportunities for us to grow in an amazing way our educational staff. So I'm calling this the Good Educators Program, and it's growing our own district. So looking at those folks that we have here in our district, as well as in our community, and growing our educational workforce with them. So if you look, our first two strategies, they were called focus areas in the very beginning when I introduced these. The first strategy is to increase recruitment and retention of more diverse educators and staff that are representative of our student body. So that feeds into that. And then the second strategy is to improve the school climate for all students, educators, and staff to best achieve their academic and professional goals. And so this is working with those who are here, and again, those who are in the community to help them move forward to come alongside us with education. So what I'm going to do now in these next few slides is kind of give an overview of demographics, racial demographics, and then drilling down to the teacher workforce, and then drilling down again to Brockton. So if you look here, on the right side, there's a pie chart that shows the adult population. And so over the past decade, the minority child population has increased. But if you look on the right side, you see that 61% of adults in the United States, based on a report released in 2021, you have 61% white, and then you have the rest, about 39% people of color. But if you look on the left, children under 18, they become the majority, where you have 47% folks are white, and then you have 53% are people of color, and then a growing Hispanic population. So that is what it looks like, just general people. So we're not talking about the teaching workforce yet until now. So right now, this next slide talks about teachers across the country. So the most common ethnicity among teachers is white, which makes up 72.3% of all teachers. Comparatively, there are 12% of the Hispanic or Latino ethnicity, and 10% are Black or African American. And if you also look here, you'll see that males are 26% of the workforce, and 74% of the workforce are females, which also speaks to males not having role models, many role models in front of them, seeing themselves as educators because they don't see educators in front of them in the classroom. So that's a space that we need to work on. There's an article that I can share with you all about a school in St. Louis that has 40% of their administrators and teachers are actually Black males, and they have 100% graduation rate and 100% college acceptance. And there's a culture that we're going to explore and actually go and visit in February, because we want to learn what those practices are, what that culture is, and how are they being successful, so that we can bring whatever that is back here. So just looking at this chart is really looking at trends. So from 2011 to 2019. So if you look on the top line, that kind of greenish line, teachers made, in 2011, they made up 75% of the teaching workforce. And then it slightly decreased in 2019. And that's basically about where we are right now, based on that previous slide I showed you. And the rest of the groups kind of remain flat. So you don't see a major growth there. But what is Brockton? So what are we doing? And so as part of an initiative from the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to support the hiring and retention of educators of color, the JET, which is Journey into Education and Teaching program, was created. So Brockton is a JET partner district that seeks to address the disparities between teachers and students' racial, linguistic, and cultural makeup. This critical workforce gap can often undermine student achievement, and it's the district's goal to ensure that our students have access to educators with whom they can identify to reap the benefits I previously mentioned. According to DESE 2020 data, the JET partner districts have an average of 77% students of color, and approximately 20% of their teachers are of color. So if we look at Brockton's data, the chart on the left talks about students, and so according to that, this is a 21-22 data, it shows that 85% of our students are of color, compared to the 44% state average. The majority of students are Black, African American, which includes African American, Cape Verdean, and Haitian, and only 14% of students in Brockton Public Schools are white. Last year there were 16%, and it looks like Hispanics and whites have swapped. So the Hispanic population has increased 2%, and the white population has decreased by 2%. And if you look at our teaching staff, 74% of our teachers are white, and 16% are teachers of color, compared to the JET districts, where they have 20% teachers of color. The JET districts who see the urgency to diversify have 77% students of color, compared to our 85% students of color. And I just highlight that because there is a sense of urgency that we address the disparities, and that we are giving our kids role models in front of them. It's not a slight on anyone. It's just that if you can see it, you can be it. And that's really what we want. We want our kids, all kids, to see themselves as scholars, as educators, whatever it is that they want to be, but they have to be able to see the model in order to become that.
So Renee, you said how much, what's the percentage of color for Brockton teachers?
74.
Yeah, I mean for that are, so there's 26% teachers of color?
I'm sorry, 26, yes.
Okay.
26,
I
thank you.
said 20.
I did my math wrong, thank you, 26. Thanks for bringing that up. 26%, so now that doesn't look as bad as it was, but it's still, yeah.
We were working hard to make sure we beat the state.
Right.
Which we've been spending a lot of time on the last few years.
Right, right. But then when you look at BEA members, 83% of BEA members are white. And then the rest, that 17%, those are people of color. So that's where we are in BEA. You know, that includes coordinators, directors, those who are in the union. And so that's where that is. And it should be noted that in Brockton, 79% of our teachers are female and 21% are male. All right, so if we look now at this data, so in your PowerPoint presentation, these pictures are switched. And if you just would indulge, on the left, you have the MTAs, and you see more diversity now in that group, which is great, You see that there is a higher population of people of color, and you see that there's about 4% of people who identify as Hispanic. But then on the right, you see that there are less people of color in the paraprofessional group. However, there's more diversity where you have, I can't see that number, but a larger number of Hispanics. And what that says to me is that there is probably more linguistic diversity in this group. And I say all of that because this is the group. If people can't find teachers of color, which they can be found, St. Louis has found them, you know, other folks find them. We have to talk about how we can find them and how we can keep them. But we have folks that are right in front of us that are from the community that speak different languages that are not in different cities. I mean, Brockton is very unique, and we need to capitalize on that. So that's where the Good Educator program comes into play. So I'm looking for this program to do two things. It's building upon the JET program that I mentioned, which was designed for paraprofessionals who don't have a college degree. And the JET program as it exists now is helping paraprofessionals connect to funding sources loans, maybe some grants to do that. But I really want to have more structure with that program. There are quite a few paraprofessionals that want to be in the education, in that teacher role, and we want to help them get there. So what we'll do is create a partnership with Saylor Academy. Saylor Academy is something that I'm familiar with from my previous job and just started doing that exploration. But Saylor Academy is a non-profit organization. It's an academy. It doesn't award credits because it is not a university, but it partners with an accredited university to get the credits. For some colleges, it's zero or low tuition. So that's basically what Saylor is all about. So we'll partner with a university that is willing to accept Saylor Academy courses to provide zero to low transfer. And Saylor has 100 full-length courses at the college and professional level. And there's a partnership, of course, that they have with the American Council on Education to assess courses for collegiate level accreditation. So that's important. This is not just a college degree or some kind of program that doesn't have any weight to it. We want that accreditation because we need to have skilled people in the teaching seats. And so examples of those universities are Urban College and also Southern New Hampshire University. There's a list of partners that they have. Urban College is only a junior college, so it doesn't do a full bachelor's degree. And so that's where we'd have to work on packaging with a partnering school. I've reached out to a few, so I'm hoping to be able to pull someone in, and then we'll work on what those steps need to be so that we can create this program. And also, there's lots of skilled folks in our district already who I am sure would be willing to be adjunct professors. I taught a graduate level Spanish course for teachers and social workers at Wheelock College years ago, and as an adjunct. And the process, you have credentials, of course, but you create that course that works and is accredited by the college. And then secondly, we want to support the success of MTAs, those who have a bachelor's, or those who only hold an emergency license and are working towards full certification. So the GOOD program will provide a GOOD program coordinator, so someone who's actually carrying this work, who's responsible for this work. And they will organize cohorts of MTAs and those who are on emergency licenses to create a personal plan to obtain full licensure. That person will also coordinate study groups and schedule instruction in partnership with Bridgewater State for MTEL preparation, because that's already in the works. And then assign mentors and tutors, and then there'll be regular check-ins to determine other professional needs. And here's the framework that I'm looking at. So the Good Educator program will be organized based on a framework that communicates the annual rotation of the program. So we'll use Saylor Academy as a source for the universal courses that they need in the beginnings of the bachelor's degree, getting their credits from that partnering university and adding incentives and supports along the way. So if we were, and then I have a sample timeline, but basically you're just going to repeat this whole process. So here's a sample timeline. If we had started in the fall, we would market, of course, and recruit people for the Good Educator program. I do have a list of those who have emergency licenses, those who started with the JET program. And so there's just a need to kind of pull all of that together to make sure that we are doing a proper reach out. And then, in December, you would enroll in 2 courses and be paired up with a mentor. That would be a stipend position. And then collect a bank of tutors. So, if people need support, we want to provide that. and then in January begin those courses and kind of set up weekly check-ins with mentors and tutors as needed, and then celebrate in June. You've taken 2 courses, let's celebrate. And whatever that might be, acknowledgement, whatever that is, that's what we want to do. And then we want to register for 2 summer courses because, as educators, I used to get summers off, but, they're moving towards a career. And so this is the perfect time for them to be taking 2 courses, and maybe they take 3, who knows? But that's something that they would do in the summer. And then in August, they would register for 2 more classes, another check-in with the mentor, begin those fall classes in September. December, we're going to celebrate again, and then whatever that celebration is, we're still talking about that, and I'll be pulling together a group to really come together as thought partners about what that celebration should look like. And then enroll in 2 more classes. In January, those classes start, and then 2 years after the program starts, again, if we'd start in the fall, I'd be looking at May 2024 to do a program evaluation. And again, I would be pulling together a group of folks, including bilingual and different departments, so that they could help me evaluate the program and make changes as needed. So that is the Good Educator program. I have written a brief on this, which gives you a little bit more detail, or the narrative that I've given you today, that I'm certainly willing to send you later on this week. All right, so we in the EDI office, as well as the bilingual office with Kelly Jones, we've been working with equitable design, and we're working on 2 projects. Kelly and Dr. Presame colleagues, they are working on a parent engagement project, and you will hear a report out on that at our next meeting in December, I believe. And this one is about student voice. This is something that was originally led by Lisa Rodriguez, just getting started, and now Darnell Williams has taken over that work until we, replace or just make some adjustments. So student equity councils, we want to give our young people an opportunity to speak and to be heard and to participate. We want to create agency for them, give them a space to advocate for themselves. And so this is what we're beginning. So as part of equitable design, you have to do something called a little bet. And so this is our little bet. We are piloting this with West Middle School, and we've already started some building culture work over there, and we just thought that this would be the great place to pilot this Student Equity Council. So that's in the works. Darnell has created a framework, and so once we evaluate the framework based on how it happens with West, then we'll be able to support the growth of other student equity councils in other schools as principals, want to create those, because there are student councils in some schools, and student equity just adds another layer of advocacy on top of that. And then we have parent engagement specialist transfer to EDI. So Dr. Soraya Presame-Calix, her parent engagement work has been transferred into the EDI office. It's a great addition. We've been partnering on a lot of things already, and a lot of her work goes to parents advocating for their kids and teaching them how, and doing parent classes with the Parent Academy. And so this is a great addition to our department. So, and she'll also be helping me with this Good Educator program as well because of her connections with the community. So there's a lot of great things that we have in store working together. And so this last piece, now I'm going to have to disappear off camera and introduce you to the EDI website. So I'm going to make this transition now. Okay, so we wanted to make it easier for folks to access the resources and to help them grow in their understanding of what EDI work is. All right, it worked. Okay, so this is the EDI website. There will be a link on the BPS website. You know, a lot of schools have their own Facebook page or what have you, so you can get, you know, live updates as to what's happening in the community. And so this is the EDI website that will be attached, of course, to the BPS EDI tab on the web page. So right away, we anchor our work in our superintendent's commitment to proficiency. And so we define equity as proficiency. And this is the commitment at the end of 5 years. 90% of our students will be proficient in ELA and math. And so that's what we anchor this work. We anchor this website in that commitment. And then this is, you know, how you can read the vision and the guiding principles. We don't add the other pieces, you know, the focus areas, what have you, because we just want to kind of give people an introduction and leave time for folks to really explore some resources. So just going to take you through some of these. Here's a reading list, and folks can look at the different titles, and they're categorized: ability, disability, ableism, aging, bias in technology, immigration, you know, EDI in the classroom, religious identity, health equity. And so those are examples. There's some other EDI titles. And some of these books we may have in classrooms or in the hands of adults. I know that the Baker School is doing a book study together as a whole staff. And the principal there actually personally signed each book and is giving time to work through affinity groups for the entire school community, the educators, of course, and then they are also discussing the culturally responsive practice book. And then you can get some information about the ACT conference, the Good Educator program, and if you just want to get involved, you can send us a note. You might want to volunteer at a parent community event, support a student activity, apply to tutor an aspiring educator. These are just some examples. I want to volunteer to participate in my school's EDI team, and then they just click one or two or whatever, you know, they might want some feedback on some lesson planning, and then submit the form. We get that, and we're able to get it to the right person so that we can support what's going on out there in the classroom. So here are a bank of YouTube videos, and these will be updated periodically, but I did just a sample grouping of belonging, encouragement for teachers, positive relationships, you know, what I know about teachers and wish everyone else knew it as well. This is just, it goes right to YouTube, so you click on it and it goes right to the YouTube video. All right, let's get here. And then the cultural calendar. So this is the one that everyone has already received this, but it's just an electronic form. We just wanted to put everything in one place to make it easy to access. And so this is the calendar. It goes by day, and then if you click on some of these hyperlinks, you're able to get more information and resources. And then here's the cultural calendar. It's structured a little bit differently. So, resources about the 4th of July and what does that mean? And, Cape Verdean Independence Day. Give me more information about that. I want to use that in class. And then coming soon, Brockton Public School Libraries, they have an online library, of course, that we can access if we have a library card, and we want to make it easy for folks to find other resources in the library. We use the library for our monthly community meetings, and so this is just the building of that partnership with them. And then take an EDI course for PDPs. This is a way to register. The day will probably be Thursday, but this again is just a sample of how to register, but we'll be giving courses for PDPs and working with the Professional Development Office. We've already started that work, and folks can sign up for these workshops that are going to be facilitated by Darnell and Dr. Presame. And so these are just samples. These are not real right now, but they're working on those. Once we're done with this conference, we'll be able to really dig deep and prepare those courses for folks. And there will be guest speakers, et cetera. And then if you want to take an implicit bias test, you can do that by clicking here and skin tone, weapons, religion, sexuality, race. You can take all of these if you want, just to see where you are. I haven't taken this in a while, and so I'm thinking I might need to, check in on myself, see where I am. And then how can we help you? Just very quick way to connect with us again. I need resources for lesson planning, help organizing a student council, support with a school culture issue or other, and then they can give us more details about that. And then here is the glossary of terms, the electronic version, and I think there's about 31 pages here. So, all of these are definitions. So, someone can spend days looking through this and really digging deep and learning. This is just introducing our team, a little hello from us, and our extension so we can be reached. And then, of course, we have to celebrate Mackenzie Quinn for breaking barriers in Brockton as being the first girl to score a touchdown in Brockton High. So that's the website, and it will be updated on a regular basis, but that's it. We just wanted to really make it easy for folks to connect.
Thank you
And
so
that
much,
is it.
Renee. Does anybody have any questions about anything that was presented today? And as you heard, Superintendent Mike Thomas is also here joining us. Well, I have a few. I don't know if anybody else does, but Ms. Haywood, when we talked about the good program, growing our own district, you mentioned the value that specifically the paras have, the linguistic diversity, and how the goal has been not just the EDI goal, but also I know the superintendent's goal has been not
District
just
goal.
to recruit, but also retain.
Yes.
That's why he was really big on the data. According to this program timeline, if you want to go back to that on the slides, it seems as they get this mentoring support throughout them being able to either get their bachelor's/licensed. But in order to be able to retain teachers, what does that support look like after they have done a program like this and they're finally in the class?
So they'll be, throughout, they're going to be part of an affinity group during the whole time. And then afterwards, the affinity groups have been created to retain, because I think that folks stay when they have a sense of belonging in a place, and so that's what we've been working on to create with our educators. We have, one for central office, and we have one district-wide. I also do one with principals and assistants, just to support them. And so that will continue to go on, and that's actually how we hope to dig and find where are you? Like, what do you need through those connections? So we're trying to really get folks to participate and know that it's okay to come out, but they will continue to be supported, and there can be regular check-ins with them, just, how is it going? What do you need? But that's going to be our culture. It is our culture anyway, to just see about folks. When I've gone to visit schools, I've just sat down and said, how's it going for you? Do you need something from me? And they're really happy to see that we do have the affinity groups, and I'm really excited about what's happening at the Baker as well, so that it doesn't look like it's just us over here and y'all over there. Like, that's not what it's for. It's really just to give a sense of belonging to a specific group that has felt marginalized, so that they can be integrated into the general group and feel confident and able to succeed. So that will just be ongoing.
That sounds great. I was also thinking about it in the individualized piece. So according to DESI, one of the biggest requirements when you're a new teacher is you have to do 50 hours of mentoring. So I understand how people could easily see, like, y'all over there, we're over here. Personally, as a coach this year myself, I do see the connection that I have with, like, dual language teachers that teach in Spanish and English.
Yeah.
It's just a different connection that I can have, that my colleagues have, as a peer, as knowing the language, as having similar experiences as some of my teachers, and being able to coach through the emotion and coach through best instructional practices. So what I'm wondering is, the affinity group sounds awesome, and having that space, but have we thought about this in the next level of what that would look like as a mentorship level, and then trying to break that barrier where it doesn't feel like, oh, because you're a person of color, you need a person of color mentor, but really understanding why behind that, right?
Yeah.
And also, like, you have that mentorship, but how do you also, are you collaborating effectively with your peers that may not also be of color, right?
Right.
Because when you collaborate, even though you may have that one-to-one support, that collaboration piece also plays a huge part. How are you belonging and including yourself in the environment you're in? So I guess that's the piece I'm talking about, that more individualized. Like, have we thought further into that? Okay.
Yes, so I have a list of all the folks who we reached out for SPOS. So that's everyone who identifies as a person of color, and what they're categorized as, what license they have, what level of license they are. And I just, when I was speaking to some of the leaders a few weeks ago, I said, I'll be looking to you all to like mentor some folks. I mean, there's things that you have to offer. There's experiences that you can tell them about, but the goal, again, is so that they can still be integrated. And so it's not, so there's the affirmation, but there's the empowerment, so that they can be in general spaces and not feel isolated. So that's part of the mentoring, is giving them the skills, if they don't have them. I don't want to assume anything, but sometimes, if I'm the only one, it's like, I don't know if it's okay to enter a space, because I don't want to interrupt a conversation that might not pertain to me, and that might be embarrassing. So, I mean, if I'm feeling that, I'm sure that other folks are feeling that as well. But the skill is, okay, Renee, so you could always ask, hey, am I interrupting something? Just wanted to say hello or something. So that's a skill that can be shared by a mentor.
Okay. And then I have a question on the Student Equity Council. So you mentioned evaluating the framework at West Middle School and clarifying the student councils versus student equity group. Why Student Equity Council and not make a position that is a student equity representative inside the student council? That's my first question. And then my follow-up would be, if we're just evaluating West Middle School, doesn't this look very different in other schools? So if we're just evaluating that one school, how would then other principals or leaders in other schools be able to adapt it to theirs? And what support would they get around that?
Okay, so I'll answer the second one because I remember that one
Okay.
more recently. But there's a framework that can be applied to any school that Darnell has been working on. And so once we test this, then we'll be able to fine tune what needs to be, and that will be the tool, because we can't build every council. And the reason for the equity piece is that, that's the office, focusing on equity, and then also advocacy and efficacy for, students. So that lens is something that we want to, that's our space. A general student council, anyone creates those, but there's another layer that we want to add if it's not there. But also district-wide, we do want to have an equity council where there are representatives. And I also, spoke with Ms. Walder. She was saying a while ago there was like a conference for students, and I'd like to have a convening of those representatives from the schools so that we could have a panel similar to actually what we're doing at the conference. We have student ambassadors who are representing the high school. We reached out to the other alternative schools, but these are the folks that responded, and so we're working with them. But the district-wide will be a larger scale. So I think you'll get a peek of that on the day of the conference and bigger as we build that piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in regards to student council, usually kids are voted into those positions. For a student equity council, just because it has that huge equity piece, how will students be part of this council? Would they be
Right.
voted in, or it's a joint for all?
So sometimes, councils, they're appointed by teachers or leaders or whatever, and we want to make sure that kids get an equal opportunity to be part of this and that they are voted in by their peers. So there will be an equitable process, and that's part of the framework as well. Elections, what does that look like? What can you do? What can't you do? What should you promise? What shouldn't you promise? Because you can't promise free lunch in Brockton you can promise free lunch for everybody, I guess. but you can't make these crazy promises that aren't going to happen. And so all of that is part of that education as well. And we want to have adults supporting the young people as they are preparing themselves to run for these positions. Yeah. And we also didn't want, because what often happens is it's the kids who are deemed the good kids that always get into these councils. But sometimes kids who are not seen that way, they have behavioral issues, and I, put all these things in quotes as I'm using someone else's language. And it might be because they're bored. It might be because they're not challenged. It might be because they're a leader and they're seeing that things might be out of order and they have a solution. But when do they get to speak to that? And so this is an opportunity to do that. So we want to cast a wide net so that we can get the right folks and have a good representation of student voice.
Okay. And lastly, it looks like the GOOD program ideally was going to start fall of 2022. You mentioned it starting in May instead of 2023. Or
Well, I didn't give a date as to when. That's a sample timeline. I wrote this brief over the summer or June maybe, and so thinking, the next time to enroll in courses would be the fall, but knowing that there's still a lot of work to do, I didn't change that timeline because I know I'm going to have to change it anyway. But I do know that after 2 years, I want to take a look at the program and see if it's working. Like, what do we, evaluating all along, but again, just taking a deep dive and seeing if this is something that needs to be tweaked or changed so that it can be successful and we can really raise up a group of folks that, can represent our kids and they can see themselves in these positions.
So we don't have a start date yet?
No, we do not. No. Because there's still pieces that have to be pulled together, and that is the agreements with the universities and all of that. And so I have a couple meetings that are coming up in the next 2 weeks, and hopefully, one of those will work out. We'll see.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have questions?
So I was going to ask about just kind of piggybacking on the GOOD program, putting my guidance counselor hat on here. I was just thinking about the seniors that we have at the high school now who are, in the college search process, thinking about what they want to do, maybe entering professions. I'm wondering if there's a way we can even get some information, something to those kids that we have here in the building now, to think about what they could do to explore education as a career. So specifically, I'm thinking just in terms of, students that might be applying for early childhood ed programs, things like that. Are there any opportunities for them to have training or to work with, educators here in Brockton? Maybe they could be working as, paraprofessionals or MTAs while they're enrolled in college programs, looking to go into early childhood ed. They could be, working with the younger kids in the district, being that model for those kids while they aspire to their career and, getting the benefit of the experience, being paid, help them pay for their college education too. So I think that there could be an opportunity just to kind of expand that outreach and just provide that information. I think a lot of senior students need that. They don't know what's available to them.
Right.
And a lot of kids overlook things that are kind of right in front of them. And if this is an area of need, I think maybe it's just a matter of trying to expand the information, even to just getting it out to the students while they're still at that kind of, we still have them. You can still provide them with that information, but that's just one of the things I was just thinking about is as we develop a program like that and try and develop it within the district, don't forget about the kids.
Tomorrow's Teacher group, and so that is on my radar to connect. So I talked briefly, I'm just trying to think of what meeting I was at, but that did come up to connect that as well with Tomorrow's Teacher. So if I'm saying they're wrong, I might be calling it something. I think it had the word teacher and tomorrow in there. So Teachers of Tomorrow, I don't know. But yeah.
Well, if there's no further questions, we can move on to other business.
Right.
Okay. And then there's no other business, then we can adjourn this meeting for tonight. I just need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I think Tony said second. I think I heard it.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right,
Second.
thank you. So this meeting has concluded. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ms. Haywood, for that
Thank you.
presentation and that information. This meeting has been adjourned.